Welcome back to the Restoring Darkness podcast, presented by the Soft Lights Foundation and the National Association of Innovative Lighting Distributors. Today, I'm joined by my co-host, Mark Baker, and the host of the Darkness News Update, Scott Wachter. When I first entered the lighting industry, I heard about the dark sky. There was often a lot of talk about reducing light pollution so that people could see the stars. But with the adoption of LEDs, and when it came to the health effects of light, it was mostly like marketing schemes where companies would claim that lights were healthier or could do something to improve seasonal affective disorder or whatever. And I don't know if any of that was legit or not, but the fact is that I never encountered people that were talking about major health effects from electric light. Especially, we heard about the flicker issue, but that was more of a 90s thing. When they updated the schools to electronic ballast, that particular health effect was largely eliminated. And there were some T12s left out there, but the idea of sitting in a classroom all day under flickering lights was an issue, and that was solved. But now we're starting to hear about real health consequences of LED light. I never heard of this before. I never heard about people talking about T8 fluorescent tubes or halogen par lamps or HPS street lights or metal halide street lights causing them problems in different kinds. And now there's a whole host of these kinds of problems that seem to be emerging out of the cracks. And so we're going to discuss what's happening in the news about that with Scott Wachter, and we're going to talk about what's happening with soft lights with respect to that. But before we do, we got to go to the soft lights update. Mark Baker, what are you working on today?
Hi, Michael. Okay, get ready for this. This is not in necessarily the lighting industry. It's in the headlight area, but it's huge. And I misspoke. It's not headlights. It's flashing lights on emergency vehicles, flashing lights on utility trucks, flashing lights on any number of vehicles. They're illegal. Federal government of the United States has stated that they are illegal. I was not aware of this. These LED flashing lights are on every vehicle all over. And for me, they're incapacitating. So I cannot see through them. I suffer a panic attack. And so, and our members are suffering migraines and seizures. So in December of 2024, so very recently, the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration released what's called a letter of interpretation. And in there, the way lawyers write, it's hard to understand what they're trying to say. But what they said is NHTSA has long stated and taken the position that supplemental or auxiliary flashing lights on vehicles are illegal in the United States. Wow. So that's our update. We're going to be using this information moving forward in lawsuits and petitions to regulatory bodies at the state level to get rid of all these LED flashing lights that have exploded in the last 5 years onto these emergency vehicles.
If you're a police officer out there, or you know a police officer, maybe he's off work or whatever, and he doesn't know why, or you also suffered as a ambulance attendant or a paramedic or whatever, I don't understand how those people can work in that environment. Like you're talking about our first responders are literally, when I drive by those scenes, I'm not affected by light like yourself, Mark, and some of the members of Soft Lights and others out there in the world. It doesn't seem to affect me acutely, at least. But if I was in that environment, I don't think any humans has like an immunity to that. That has to be telling their pituitary gland over and over and over and over. You're lying on the beach in the sun. You're lying on the beach in the sun. You're lying on the beach in the sun. Right? Like that level of light hitting that has to be causing problems for our first responders. So thank God for this particular news from the Soft Lights Foundation. Scott Wachter, welcome to the show.
Hey, everyone.
Scott, I know we discussed this is going to be more of a roundtable, this kind of talk, but I want to throw at you. You've been monitoring the news surrounding restoring darkness, night preservation, dark skies, light pollution for how long now?
I guess 3 years is coming up.
And you've been involved in this podcast since its inception. So you're talking about 4 or 5 years kind of in this space, monitoring news on a constant basis in the lighting industry. Has the news changed from protecting our celestial heritage to really outlining damage caused by LED lights more and more?
Uh, what I find is that really this remains very much a local issue. So depending on where you are, obviously Colorado is like, no, we see county by county, town by town, following Aspen's lead of like, no, we're gonna alter our lighting, we're gonna keep it low, keep it pointed down, and they're doing that for the tourism value. You jump over to Florida, it's like, no, we gotta bother beach bars about their TVs so we don't lose any turtles this year. And then you see other places that are more is still very much about the maintaining access to starlight. That's what Arizona does. There's a huge thing in Chile right now where we've got two of the biggest observatories on Earth in the mountains of Chile, and I'm like, and their capacity to work is going to be diminished by a proposed hydrogen refinery, and like we're talking 30% of functionality at the biggest telescope on Earth.
But what
So
about the what about
it's a local issue. It's a local issue, and every local issue is going to be motivated differently. Like we were seeing Southern Ontario adopt a lot of ordinances because pot farms look scary at night.
It's true. It looks like if you see it from afar, like a crazy, I think it's across Lake Louise, you can see some of these farms, which
Yeah,
is the lake in between, I think it's Huron and Erie. There's another lake
yeah.
in there. It's not one of the Great Lakes. But when you can see pictures, it literally looks like a UFO invasion is going on in Southern
Oh
Ontario
yeah,
or
like
something.
Leamington, Ontario was like the spark point for this one farm that did not want to buy curtains for themselves. And Leamington, the views from Leamington at the time were, yeah, no, it's a movie. It's a horror
It
movie.
looks like a nuclear apocalypse, yeah. So but what about the health effects? So
I think,
everything you've referenced has been outside and related to
yeah,
environment. You got the bats in there. You got the Audubon Society calling for lights out for birds. Yeah, there's a lot of things that seems that people care a lot about animals. A lot of focus on animals. It was used to be exclusively focused on stars. Is the focus on the human health aspect of all this being increased in your monitoring of the news and of research studies and that?
well, we're seeing this ever snowballing body of evidence that, yeah, okay, bright light at night, regardless of color temperature, even though blue is worse because it's high energy, that's becoming more of a concern. But I think it's very much focused on get off your phone before bed. It's not talking about, hey, maybe you need to, disconnect from all your devices after dinner, check out your bed, really, really find some safe, soft bedroom lighting for yourself. And we see some wellness influencers talking about setting up, sleep routines and sleep hygiene in that way. But it's still very much a personal responsibility issue where it's like, no, you have to take control of everything that you keep in your bedroom and how you manage your time and just what you do with your time in the hour or two before bed and when you first wake up.
And I'm going to put this right over to Mark here because I want your take on it. So what's still happening, I think, with the news? I'm not talking about maybe, there's obviously scientific research papers like Scott said, talking about specific issues, whatever. But in the news specifically, Mark, everything is either bats, birds, turtles, stars, or it's stop looking at your phone late at night and everything's your responsibility. And it seems to, I don't know if this is intentional or it's just people don't know. It seems like they're avoiding the stories that Soft Lights is talking about. What do you think, Mark?
Yeah, I like what Scott said about this. The news media talks about personal responsibility. this is easy for them, I think, to say, what can you do? It's part of their sort of a standard, the way they write. They talk about the problem, they interview a couple of people, get their voices, and then they end. It's always sort of a summary of what can you do? And it's, oh, turn off your phone, turn off your television. But it's so rare for them to say, oh, this is a systemic problem that needs to be solved by members of Congress and your state legislator and your city council. And there needs to be lawsuits filed, and you need to get involved like that. And so the coverage is not getting at the systemic. I'm an engineer by schooling, and so I think systemically and solving problems that way. So maybe it's just natural for me, but the media is not covering it that way. And we don't have the health leadership. That's not quite the right word, but the medical community, the health, like local county health departments. Wow, they need to be coming out and saying this light pollution is pollution, and we need to do something about it. And look at all these health effects: increased risks of cancer, increased risks of mood disorders, increased risks of early mortality, increased risks of diabetes, heart disease. This light pollution is everywhere, and these, if it's pot farms or if it's LED street lights, or like, for example, yesterday there was something on the news about COVID, and they're showing New York City, central, the central Times Square area, and it's overwhelming with light pollution, very, very intense. And they're talking about viruses, and but they're showing light pollution, and the health departments are not talking about that.
Hmm. I'm just going to loop back to something, and maybe we'll move on from this after I say, or maybe Scott, you'll have something to say about this. But this idea of personal responsibility being the light pollution abatement strategy of our society, which is what it is. So what they're saying is personal responsibility. And I think it's becoming increasingly clear that there's a certain percentage of our population that are affected in a far greater way than other parts of the population. And so that strategy says to them, your personal responsibility is you can't drive at night, and you can't walk on the streets at night, and you can't go into this building, and you can't go into that building. And if you go to Times Square, you're going to die. Right? I mean, I'm being a little bit sarcastic, but there's an element of the personal responsibility that position, let's call it, that is very discomforting to me in light of so much information out there. I don't know if you want to take this one, Scott, from here, or if you want to throw something else on the table.
Well, I mean, I think this is, what I'll say is that this is kind of the messaging for everything, right? We are coming out of the era of the personal carbon footprint, right? The biggest emitters of carbon are 100 private companies, but like, I'm gonna save the day by walking to the grocery store.
Yeah, seriously.
I gotta consider the embodied carbon of my purchasing habits, and I'm like, or we could just not let, I don't know, rich guys go to space so much.
Watch it, you, Mark.
You haven't been keeping up with the Darkness News update? Oh, I got
I
beef.
know.
I got beef with self-driving cars and microsatellites.
Personal responsibility before we talk about Mr. Musk. Mark, what do you think?
Oh, that was another great insight, Scott. This was a strategy for decades. I didn't realize it. I bought into it when I was younger. Oh, the personal responsibility. I'll donate money to reduce my carbon footprint. I'll do these steps and recycle and stuff. And then it turns out that was a whole messaging thing created by the large companies to shift. And you're not making it up, right? They've written about it, that to shift this responsibility, that it's not the corporations, it's you. And so this is the same with the news media tends to fall into it. Maybe they're just falling into it by accident, and and not asking the right questions. But that is very important. And the lighting industry could end up doing the same thing, shifting it. Maybe they're part of the problem, shifting that to personal responsibility. And we can say to our audience, no, it's not. Yes, you should not be looking at your phone at night. It's bad for you. Okay, that is something. But the major problems with light pollution is the pollution caused by people who sold all these lights and the government who failed to regulate all this pollution.
You know what's incredible to me? This just occurred to me while with the comment you just made. We just did a deep state podcast on extended producer responsibility. Okay? And when it comes to recycling hazardous waste, so household hazardous waste, paint, light bulbs, smoke detectors, batteries, these types of things that everybody has that are not acutely toxic if one AA battery goes in the garbage, but we don't want to be dumping millions of batteries into landfills and burning them and stuff like that. We need to do something different than that, right? And so the program in lighting was to put extended producer responsibility onto producers, and they could pay a fee to remove their liability from the waste downstream. And I think this is a really stupid way to do it, okay? Because the manufacturer is really far away from the garbage. They have no idea where it is. So they can't verify how many lamps are getting recycled or what's happening. But extended producer responsibility is just a concept. And I think there's an interesting argument here, Mark Baker, for extending the responsibility of lighting producers, people that produce lighting. And I would extend that all the way down, okay? Say from the manufacturer to the distributor to the contractor and the electrician that installed it. And say there's a responsibility to not create light pollution when you install lights. There's a responsibility for that. And how that plays itself out is interesting. But I think that concept of extended producer responsibility, where I don't like it with hazardous waste and garbage, I think there's better systems that we could use that would increase the recovery of those products. I actually think in this context, that's an amazing concept to consider. That all of, not even producers, but extended industry responsibility or something. Where the lighting industry as a whole and the players in it, through the channel, become responsible to do better lighting. And one of the things that they can't do is create a lot of light pollution. They can't do that anymore. What do you think of that?
So, yeah, that is great. So here's an example I hope that matches. So there's a chemical called Roundup. It contains a chemical called glyphosate, if I'm pronouncing that correctly.
I think Roundup is glyphosate. I think that's what the technical name for Roundup.
It's just a brand name. It's just a brand name.
Glyphosate is Roundup. It's the same thing, I think. Anyway.
Well, but okay. Roundup is a brand of that. So this chemical, and so people that were spraying it on a regular basis, like working at schools, developed a kind of a cancer. And over time, it became something that enough people had developed this cancer and died, that the lawsuits began. Mm-hmm. The lawsuits began against this product, against this company. It was originally by Monsanto, I think, and then Bayer, I think, recently purchased it. And then what they try to do is they try to create a whole new company that is just for this one product, so they can bankrupt that company and then not have to pay anything. So this is sort of the strategy. So they went after this one company. So as we remember back to, we had Dr. Mario Mata on the show, and he made clear the connection between light pollution and cancer. He didn't want to call it carcinogenic directly, but the impacts of the artificial light will lead to this increased risk of cancer. So there's this liability on the product that these companies such as Acuity Brands is a really big one. They're selling a product that is known to be a vector for cancer. So legal companies, lawyers could, if they understood what we're talking about here, could begin that process of filing lawsuits. And that's where they'll start to sort of like, they'll fight back and such, but it'll bring to the forefront this issue that light pollution is hardly any different than glyphosate.
So, in the age of Philips, GE, and Sylvania, kind of acting as governors of the lighting industry. Like they kind of made all the decisions. You know what I mean? Like, and they would study stuff. They had really huge research and development departments, and they would study stuff. In the past, I would have said that if there was something wrong about lighting, GE, Sylvania, and Philips would know that. And they would already know that. Okay? Because they would be the first people that are the most interested to know, right? Like, because, we don't want to get our butts sued off or whatever you want to say, right? So the tobacco companies were the first ones to know that cigarettes caused cancer. They knew that long before anyone else did. Okay, right? So they knew it and they covered it up. In today's world, I don't think that there is a lighting company big enough to answer those questions. And Scott, do you think that maybe is the reason that all three of those companies sold off their lighting businesses? Do you think there's a possibility that they may have already known this and that's why they left the lighting industry?
I think honestly, I'm not going to go down that road. I don't think that's the case. I think GE was too big to manage itself, and I think the lighting division of GE was not a particularly high margin one, and with LEDs, the business of just turning over lamps, selling you a light bulb every year for the same fixture is like, oh, well, that's literally the only way we make money on this. We got to ditch it. And obviously, Philips Lighting has more or less coalesced in Sylvania, which is still very big. Not Sylvania, Signify.
Mm-hmm.
And that's still very big. But they're also, perhaps likely to be more responsible about things just because they're in the EU.
They're for sure, but they're also more responsible here in Ontario. Like I find, like Signify is a very professionally run company. So I would say that then likely the reason then what it is like, as you said, the business was changing from basically a pseudo subscription based business where people's light bulbs burned out and they supplied the channel into a situation
like
where
razor
that
blades.
was exactly where that was over with. So it was a corporate decision. But I found those companies were amazing with the level of knowledge that they had about lighting. But then I think it's possible. I don't think the reason why the lighting industry isn't embracing the problem of light pollution because they know that something's wrong. I don't think people know yet, Mark. I don't think people are aware yet. I think the industry is largely not aware or doesn't believe or know or legitimately take seriously the idea that light pollution is pollution and hurts people on an acute and a chronic basis.
Well, this is it. Like corporations learn when the hand touches the stove. And we haven't had the hand touch the stove moment yet. Probably because for most people, it's we're not dealing with a 3rd-degree burn. We're dealing with just a little bit of pain every day, right? Like everyone is sleeping less well. Everyone is losing a half hour of sleep a week, and that takes years to turn into depression and anxiety and cancer and whatever else, right?
Mark, I'll throw it over to you.
Right. So there are so many of these environmental catastrophes. The PFAS chemical, the forever chemical. I just talked to a person who is involved in legal actions related to the sports artificial turf. So it turns out that the artificial turf companies sold this product as a replacement for grass. Okay, great. And then all the kids are playing soccer and football on this artificial turf. And then it turns out that it was created by ExxonMobil, the oil company. And it turns out that it's full of this toxic forever chemical. And the kids are sliding around it, and it's getting into our bodies and into their brains and such. And so this recognition took time, decades, right, to recognize that this environmental problem occurred. And so in the lighting world, it's the same. And it's like Scott said, it's sort of insidious because it's sort of small at a time, little incremental things. Macular degeneration
I just
from,
want to add, do you know what dissolves a PFAS? Do you want to know?
if there is something, sure, tell
LED
us.
lighting. Did I lose you?
Well,
Oh dear.
No, you're here. You're here, Scott. We can hear you. We can hear you. Oh man. Oh, he's logging back in. Something happened. He dropped the funny one there. He dropped the
Oh,
funny.
oh,
yeah.
sorry.
He dropped the funny.
Sorry.
That was good.
I think we're back.
You're back. You're back. Can you hear us?
Yeah, I've got you.
Okay. So, I was thinking about it, and I don't know. I don't want to. I mean, everybody wants to put it behind us, but you remember the COVID-19 riots that happened with when George Floyd died? Like everyone was locked in their homes, and then this crazy social issue happens, and people just bust out and went crazy. But one of the things that I saw that I thought was super interesting with that violence was how well lit up all the streets were. Like it was almost like if I felt like if you had just started dimming the lights and warming them or something, people would have gone home at the nighttime. You know?
Oh, I'll have to send you the link, but I just saw a press release for a fantastic new law enforcement device. You're gonna love this one, Mark. It's a quadcopter drone that puts out stadium level floodlighting. Now they're billing
Oh,
it for search and rescue. They're billing it for search and rescue, but we know where it's going. We know where it's going.
But I think actually I think what I'm kind of suggesting here, Mark, is that maybe one of the symptoms of light pollution that's chronic on everybody is that when people are hit with 5,000K lighting and they're in a kind of rioty mode, like they're in a kind of protesty mode, and the sun starts to go down. If you had those HPSs there, people would probably have just gone to the bar and got drunk. But because you have these super blaster lights everywhere and everyone can see everything, it doesn't feel like it's time to go home or something, Mark. I just had that feeling when it was going on.
I absolutely agree with you. It's so great that you brought that up. I see it, and that I think his name is Kyle Rittenhauser or something.
Rittenhouse.
That
Yeah, that's one of the ones I remember. You could see everything.
yeah. So it's you brought back a visual in my head from a photograph of the 5,000K floodlights and streetlights and lit up, and then here comes the police and their weaponized vehicles with the red and blue flashing lights, and you just got this major war chaos thing going on. And Kyle Rittenhouse is walking towards the police, trying to actually give himself in, turn himself in, and they didn't see him. There's just chaos everywhere. But what if it was absolutely dark? This wouldn't be happening. You wouldn't have the chaos. Nobody could see. Like I'm
Exactly.
talking about 100%. And if it was warm colors and amber colors and relaxing, everybody would calm down a little
Yes.
bit. So, wow, we've created the kind of worst possible environment in the night with this terrible LED lights.
Yeah, like I would say that like if you're walking down the street and it's really super bright, I hate that. I don't like it at night. And when I'm walking down a city street and it's like super bright or whatever, but there's nobody else around, I feel vulnerable actually. And look, I'm not saying that everyone should feel that way or anything. I'm not, casting dispersions on people that want more light for safety. What I'm saying is though that I'm a little bit agitated in that environment. A little bit agitated. I'm not like going these damn lights. I'm just like, it's kind of uncomfortable here. I want to get out of here. I don't want to be around these lights. But maybe there's like an effect of 5,000K lights after someone's tired, they've had a whole day, they've been awake the whole day, and now their pituitary gland gets hit with these lights and they're in a riotous mood and they're pissed off about something. They're legitimately or illegitimately, whatever you want to say. There's a group of people there that are upset at the government, the powers, or they're against another group of people, and you shine 5,000K lights on them. Maybe it makes violence a lot more likely. I don't know. I'm just saying, I have a feeling that it might, Mark.
Yeah, I agree. Belief. Blue light is a high end light. It comes from our in the natural world. It's to wake us up. to make us feel energetic. As the sun, excuse me, sets, um, it's a signal to us. Hey, start to wind down. Start to get ready to go to sleep. It's that red color, the elimination of the blue. We know now that the infrared light is beneficial for us, and that LEDs have eliminated all the red or the infrared, both. And so we've interfered with the cycle, the normal cycle. We've tried to convert humans into a 24/7 being when we're actually not evolved that way. And so if we're going to be humans, we should try to eliminate these products and this interference with our evolutionarily based system.
Over to you, Scott Wachter.
I think at a certain point, you know, we had riots before this, right? We stormed the Bastille by we stormed the Bastille by torchlight, right?
Good point.
I will say, and you know, the Bastille, storming the Bastille, way worse than Oregon, I think, for some people. But
Yeah,
I will
you're
say, I think we have. I don't necessarily want to wade into a topic that has so many multifaceted elements and just say, oh yeah, but it was really bright, so people got to do more. And I'm like, yeah, I don't know. There were Zoot Suit riots, you know.
Sure.
We've seen political unrest before without LEDs, and I would be curious to see. And you know that'd be a thing to talk to a historian about. Like let's talk about some anarchy and some sedition here and what that does at night compared to during the day. But that's not from. I'm not a historian. I don't know that one.
Yeah,
It's
I'm
a
just.
good-
It's a good point. Yeah, I'm just postulating here, but I think Scott Wachter kind of leavened the bread a bit there. With that, I think I don't think we can. We're not proposing that such a multifaceted issue could have been solved by having warmer lights. That's not what we're saying at all.
Michael,
Yeah.
there is one thing, though, that is important, which is that the industry or the government officials tell us that we need this artificial light to improve safety.
That's a good point.
And if we see riots occurring underneath 5,000K lights and they're still rioting, I don't think I buy their argument that the light improves.
Oh yeah, like Central Texas, Austin, like one of their campuses, they had a lot of nuisance crime. They get a lot of nuisance crime during the first semester of every year, right? Fall semester, people get rowdy, you get frat rushing, and so their solution was to have Austin City Police sitting on corners and in alleyways with the red and blues going all night, and I'm like. Midterms are coming up, guys. Someone probably is studying for midterms as much as they might be stealing someone's bikes. I don't think that did a lot for anyone, and I never saw a report that it worked. And now Ohio State's doing the same thing, and I'm like, I don't think that was good, guys. I don't think this is gonna do much.
So, yeah, what did you? So let me ask you this: should the police be there with their lights off?
I think. Look,
I'm throwing it back at you. There's a question there.
De-escalate.
Is it are the lights contributing at all to the crime reduction? That's a good question.
When we look at crime and light, you have to remember that there are a lot of kinds of crime, right? There are a lot of kinds of crime, and I'm thinking of one study, and I can't recall. It's an older one, unfortunately, but I can't recall where it took place. But what they noticed was that when we break it down, we do the psychogeography. We have the incident report here. We have the lighting map here, and we say, okay, these are the crimes that need light. You need to see that the mugger has the gun, so he needs a certain amount of light to make that work. But if you're gonna get grabbed, if someone's in the just murder mode, they're gonna wait until you're in the dark, right? Where you're not acclimatized and they're gonna strike. And we see this with car break-ins, right? We have A/B testing, like this street has lights on, this one doesn't, and car break-ins don't happen on the dark street because you can't see if there's still a person in the back, right? As opposed to having that opportunity. And lighting, when we talk about crime, we can talk about opportunity costs. This is a lot of what SEPTED deals with, right? You are either introducing opportunity costs or you are removing opportunity gains. So we say, okay, we only light the areas we want to see people in. We light pathways, we light entryways, and other places it's just dark because it's harder to work that way. Rural Alberta, they get a lot of break-ins into sheds, and everyone's like, "Oh, you got to get your motion lights on your shed so no one steals your snowmobile." And I'm like, "You just gave someone the light they need to break your lock, man. That's what you've done."
Yeah, and then all of a sudden, light in that area, because in that kind of neighborhood, what's going to happen is the sensor is going to work perversely for safety. Because what's going to happen is they're either going to take it out because it keeps going off every time a raccoon walks by it. Okay, which is the
Deers,
first
man, deer, all the
deer.
time.
Yeah, like I had to do that at my father-in-law's cottage because the light kept going on because the dog would go outside or so, whatever. And so,
Yeah.
or you leave the sensor on and you just become immune to it because you don't think it's ever really actually a problem. If there's light in an area where it's dark, it draws people's attention to that. Why is there light there? There shouldn't be light there. The lights are off. There's nobody there. There's not supposed to be anybody there. And so the idea that that lighting everything will create more safety is an idea of what kind of crime are we fighting and what are we doing. It's a complicated question. But at the end of the day, when you're talking about break and entering, there's no way, I don't think you can make a rational argument that lighting everything up so things don't get broken into is going to reduce that particular crime. And in fact, like Scott said, with the car break-ins, Mark, it only increases it.
Like, this is my favorite
Yes.
story. This is an anecdote, so it's not data, but this is my favorite story. I manage. My neighbor's house is empty right now. They can't sell it, so I'm managing their garden for them. And I grew on my side and her side big honking pollinator garden, tall stuff. Great for saw so many bumblebees. Great times. Reducing my carbon footprint right there. Doing the personal responsibility for the bees and the birds and the pollinators. And Amazon delivered a package of mine to the other door. I didn't realize it. And it sat there behind that shrub for 3 days. And I look at everyone in my neighborhood with their ring cams and their floodlights that go off, and I'm like, how I didn't get porch pirated and you did. Why? Oh, probably because I have shrubs and no lights.
That is a great story. But let's say so, and you live in a condo complex, and so there's quite a few people around, and there's they're packed in kind of like that. You don't really have your personal space, and then Amazon delivers these packages. So there are people that go around and steal these packages because it's convenient, but it's not. But having the light isn't going to absolutely will not prevent those porch pirates. We've all seen the ring cameras. We've all seen that, right? And it doesn't matter. It can be daytime. It could be nighttime with light. It's is the package visible at all? That's the issue. And are those people willing to steal? That's the issue. I think that's the word safety has been co-opted by people that sell products or that politicians love to say, oh, we got to make it safe. There are so many cities like Atlanta, Georgia, where the mayor of the city, Stockton, California, will come on and say, oh, there's streetlights out. That's one of their top priorities is to get those streetlights repaired because of safety. And yet nobody even knows what that means, safety. There is, for example, is personal, your navigation. That's what I like the word, right? Safety of tripping and falling over a crack. Okay, that's sort of a type of safety. Safety from the smash and grabs, the theft. That's a different kind of safety. Safety from rape, safety from murder, kidnapping. That's a different kind of safety. What about health? That's sort of a safety issue also, right? Is it really safe to be subjected to this kind of light? So the word safety can't continue to be used to cover everything. It's meaningless. It's a meaningless word. It's just a political slogan.
Oh yeah. Well, safety is a feeling. Safety is a feeling, and security is a fact. You can talk about degrees of security. Safety is how you feel. I'm going to start with I got a point, but I have to do a disclaimer. No one here endorses doing crimes. None of our associates or partners endorse doing crimes. I really love that people steal copper out of streetlights. I think it is hilarious because I find it hilarious. Don't endorse it. Don't do it. But I find it hilarious because it's like, oh yeah, the light that is keeping us safe. The thing that is supposed to keep us safe. And it's like, yoink! And either they're doing it at night while they're on, or they're doing it during the day when everyone can see them. So yeah, no. I mean, again, no crimes. Don't do crimes.
Yeah, I think I don't know if it's even co-opted, but like you would never see like ever someone say, "Go outside and let the sun go in your eyes." That's gonna make you safer. People say, no, you don't want that sun going in your eyes. You need these safety sunglasses that cost $400 to keep your eyes safe from the sun. But actually, the human eye needs to have contact with the sun every day. That's part of our physiology. That's how we work. But it's like that would you could literally make a totally true statement and say to somebody, go outside and let the sun go into your eyes for safety. Safety against what? Disease. It makes you produce vitamin D. Da, 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 da. When the sun's out, you should hit your eyes a certain amount. But you're right. It's all companies that make a product or offer a service, Mark, that use that word all the time. And all you have to do is buy the product or buy the light or buy the sunglasses or buy the sunscreen or buy the product, and then you're going to be safe. And this is most exacerbated when you see, I don't know if it's still true anymore, but 15 years ago, the way people would lather their kids in sunscreen. I remember this poor Indian kid, he turned blue. His mom put so much sunscreen on him, his skin was blue. And like these are chemicals, man. It's hazardous waste. So the idea of safety, Mark, you're right. It's like it's been co-opted for us as a sales strategy to affect people's feelings, like Scott was talking about. It affects their feelings. If you put on sunscreen, you're safer. If you put on a hat, you're safer. Never was said. Nobody says, yeah, put on a hat. Don't put, safer. And so it's the way people feel about this issue that's going to move the needle, I think.
And simple ideas, sort of binary, safe or not safe. The world is complex. The universe is complex. And so the subtleties of, sunscreen could actually help you protect. But what about the adverse effects? This needs to be talked about. Okay, maybe the light could provide extra safety, but what about the adverse effects? And so the industries that sell products, they don't want the public really to know about the adverse effects. They want to sell you what's so exciting about their product, right? The upsides. The downsides is like, okay, it gets complicated. And then if you start getting into the health impacts, it's like, okay, but it helped 90% of the population and then 10% suffered an adverse impact. Well, what are you going to do? Say it's a bad product if it helps 90% but doesn't help the other, or the other 10% are then really impacted? That's sort of a tricky ethical question, right?
Scott, do you have the calculus of that, of what Mark's saying? So like it would be, the question is, we have to have LED lights because of carbon change, and we need to save energy. So we need 90% of the people are receiving the benefits, the societal benefits of energy efficiency and reduced carbon. And the other 10% can suffer because this is how we make our decisions. What's the calculus to that, Scott?
Well, I mean, we can talk about philosophic calculus, if you're an Enlightenment era philosopher, but I would say, I got to say philosophic calculus. Tell me a liberal arts education isn't worth it. I just got paid to say philosophic calculus. Okay, look, everything is a series of trade-offs. If you think there's a perfect solution, you're living in Candyland, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
But I think at a certain point we have to say, and we also have to be so we have to make our trade-offs, and we have to be willing to reassess periodically. We decide due to a series of perverse incentives within utility companies and how they are regulated in North America, it behooves them to never expand capacity. So, in order to not expand capacity, they created a program to reduce people's individual usage, whether that's better refrigerators, better dryers, and a program that emphasized that lighting should emit more lumens per watt than anything else. And if you have a single metric that becomes a goal, it stops being a useful goal. So now we need to reassess our goals with lighting. And that can be just occupant comfort at this point, which is hard to measure, but we can set up some guidelines about flicker, we can talk about diffusion, we can talk about other factors that can improve light, and we can still maintain a certain amount of that energy efficiency. But at a certain point, we have to admit that, guess what? We can't let utilities get away with passing the buck onto the personal responsibility and just say, congratulations, you have to build a thorium recycler somewhere so that we can all have, power. And yeah, guess what? The government will cut you a deal. We'll let you raise your rates a bit. We'll give you a grant. We'll figure out a no interest loan, whatever. You build more capacity and we get to have, a certain amount of comfort in our homes.
I've always felt, Mark, that the whole debate about energy efficiency and all this sort of stuff is I think we've hit on it, like we've hit this this has been the same nail on the whole show we're hitting. We can't energy efficiency whether you're against climate change or for climate change or whatever. We need electricity. And I think everyone can agree that we want to have as much of it as we want at a very low price. And we need it to be clean now. I don't know what that means. I don't know how to build power plants, okay? But, whatever that means, we need as much of it, and the lighting industry should not be making compromises because, like Scott says, Mark, they didn't build enough power plants or something.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
Now everybody's responsible to take care of their own lighting and make sure it's efficient as possible, so your hydro bill doesn't go way up or something.
Yeah. So the failure on this energy efficiency. Energy efficiency is fine. I don't mind having a product that uses less energy and gives me the same service using less energy. Nothing wrong with that. But when you say the United States government has said, oh, we're going to require that everything be these energy efficient so-called light bulbs, right? But without setting a limit on total overall power used, it's not going to solve any problem because the population continues to grow. They didn't set any limits on how many light bulbs you could buy. So now people are buying more light bulbs. So none of their calculus there was overall energy usage. I don't know. I haven't seen the data yet. It's been long enough. We should have it. But did the Department of Energy's plan work? Setting this limit in the United States to 45 lumens per watt as a minimum. And now they're going to 120 lumens per watt next year, supposedly. Is it actually saving energy or not? And so I haven't seen that data, but I don't think it really is.
Well, those reports only come out every 10 years.
Do they do?
We just got...
Yeah? 10 years, Scott?
They do those... It's every 10 years. I definitely remember getting the last big one from, the real LEED era. This is the product of this was the big breakdown of what LEED and WELL standards did for energy consumption. And it was, obviously trillions of kilowatt hours, but, but we aren't going to know what this next step is going to do for, 6 more years, right?
Who prepares those reports?
It is the Department of Energy. Do we still have one of those? Do you still have one of those down there?
Department of Energy?
Yeah. How about is it 3 guys? Is it still 3 guys working away?
They're busy dismantling all the really useful small agencies first, the ones that actually help the little people and stuff. The Department of Energy is kind of really the Department of Nuclear Energy, and if you did see it in the news, they did actually accidentally fire all the people that protect us from nuclear radiation. And then they realized that was a mistake. And so they brought them back. So who knows? Maybe we won't get a report now, right? That there's nobody around to make it.
You know what's, and I know we're going way off topic here, but I just have to say this, okay? I just have to say this, okay? Is there a huge swathe of people in the world that actually believe that, you can lay off so many people all at once and it won't make a difference at all? Is there people that really believe that? You can't, I could understand.
Apparently.
I understand auditing. I don't think any rational voter would ever be against an audit of different agencies of the government to find deficiencies. I don't think anybody would ever be against that. And sure, you'd have the unions, no, you can't, whatever. That's a normal debate. But when slashing huge swathes of people is whether it's efficient, maybe they're working at 40% of capacity, 30% of capacity. I don't know. I don't know what the numbers are. Maybe it's 60% or whatever. But I don't see how you can just like that and everything keeps working the way it was working before. That doesn't sound rational to me, Mark Baker. I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong.
You're right. No, you're right. We're way off topic here, but that's how you build an authoritarian regime. So this has been done in Turkey and in where else was it? Hungary. So you develop this chaos, you make it so that the government's really not functioning, you get everybody to be loyal to you, and it's just total chaos. And then you have your authoritarian regime and nothing's working properly. It's not like it was anymore. I don't know how it's going to turn out. In our world, to bring it back to this topic a little bit, the Food and Drug Administration, they fired something like 10,000 employees from the Food and Drug Administration, when in fact we need them to be hiring thousands of people to study and test electromagnetic radiation. That whole area called the Center for Devices and Radiological Health was doing nothing. So all kinds of products like Wi-Fi routers and cell phone towers and LED streetlights and LED headlights, these all have been invented and use electromagnetic radiation. They all need to be studied and they need standards to be set, and yet they're busy firing everybody. So no, this is not helping our cause. So
the efficiency gains is also productivity, right? But I think you kind of want to fire them, Mark. It kind of sounds like you wanted to fire those people at the FDA.
Well, yeah, it's a sort of mixed blessing, right? They weren't helping us before. We haven't gotten the problem solved. Now we have new leadership. Now they fired everybody. I guess we're sort of starting from scratch. Okay, but now let's start hiring experts in there and let's start doing what we need to have done, because this light pollution is a serious issue. And now maybe, I don't know, now we'll bring in the best of the best, I guess.
That's the argument, Scott Wachter. One final word to you, Scott.
I would say that, hey, again, the Darkness News Update is every other Thursday. You can keep abreast of whatever it is, whether I'm talking about the spawning habits of Chinook salmon or yet another study that proves shift work is bad for you. Otherwise, I would say keep your eyes out there.
And thank you all for listening to Restoring Darkness. I feel we went almost to 53 minutes on this one. I feel like we should have done this sooner. I mean, I thought that was a great chat. I really enjoyed having Mark and Scott together here on Restoring Darkness, and I really feel that the three of us, although we're not experts or scientists, as Scott said, or we're not researchers, but I think we're really working to move this issue forward. Scott's providing you all the news. You can watch it. You can listen to it. Mark and I are on the interview trail here trying to talk to people that can contribute to the issue. So thank you out there. You can contribute by clicking the donation link at the on the website, and you can donate directly to the production of this show, or you can donate to the Soft Lights Foundation by clicking the link to softlights.org. Thank you for listening. Bye for now.